It's important for us, or for me, I wanted to create a space where dialogue and conversation was open and engaging. We can engage each other and talk about things because things are going to develop no matter what. We might as well use our voice and have a voice so we can direct things the way we want. And even if we can't necessarily direct them the way we want, just know that at least you served your purpose and now you're more aware. That's a primary thing for me that I care about. You know, I wanted to make sure that it has a purpose.
So each course is going to be met with one of the topic questions.
To go along with the first course, the conversation is Atlanta is becoming the place for foodies and the food culture is thriving. However, many families in food deserts struggle with food access. But I want to ask, who has a definition for a food desert? Yes, Xavier.
You have a family living in an area where there is no access to quality nutritional foods within, I don't know, 10-mile radius. It's very far they have to travel to get food. So I guess it's supposed to indicate a kind of deprivation or a kind of what they call food insecurity.
But what Xavier was saying about transportation is, of course, as our conversation develops over the night, we're going to see transportation and housing come up a lot because we live in our communities. We work in our communities. We play in our communities. And food is foundational. And so the USDA's, this is loosely, the definition for a food desert is food deserts are defined as parts of the country vapid of fresh fruits, vegetables, and other healthful whole foods, usually found in impoverished areas. This is largely due to lack of grocery stores, farmers markets, and healthy food providers.
Basically shifting to say, I may not live in a food desert because the West End also isn't a food desert. It has Kroger. It has a grocery store, but it is a food swamp. So you can be a food desert and a food swamp, or not be a food desert and live and it be a food swamp at the same time.
All right. So now that we have working definitions for some keywords, actually, let's back up. How do we define access? What do we mean when we say access?
For me, I would say that access for me, since I don't drive, it would be like within MARTA reach or something I could access by foot if I,
Yeah. Right. So when you say within MARTA reach, right?
Yeah.
Like, but what kind of? Or go ahead.
I would say affordability also.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where I could go to a place, not only get there easily and comfortably, conveniently, but I can afford the food that's there that is healthy for me. So, and sometimes it's not always. I kind of drive far to get to a place that I can afford to buy healthy food.
So a lot of folks in the room didn't live in a food desert, but how many people, the closest grocery store to you, perhaps the food is overpriced? Or it feels overpriced. Let me say that. It feels overpriced. Yeah?
Looks overpriced.
Okay.
If you can get 20 nuggets for $2, and you live in a food swamp where the value meal is valued, like at what point do you educate that family, that person, that child that, that nugget isn't a nugget? Like,
living in West End,
yes.
yeah, it's neighbors talking to neighbors and pretty much saying, hey, have you tried this new mango, or have you tried this new, just something to let people know that this is available and why. A lot of people don't know why they should not eat fast food. I mean, it sounds simple, but to us, we know that this stuff has no nutritive value. But a lot of people just know that I'm full, I'm good, I can walk. So I think those are the creative things we have to be able to do. And I think another thing too you mentioned is having all the stakeholders together. We got to get to know our council person to let that person know, hey, I'm starting this urban farm, and how do I get protection? Because if they know that these things are there, they can let us know about different policies coming down, what can we do to protect ourselves. But I think those are some of the things that we haven't started to gap those edges, clean up those edges.
My favorite quote, we were talking about this a little bit earlier, but the role of the artist is to make revolution irresistible. And so like I would expand like artist to organizer to farmer to, you know, all these different things. And so I think like we have to do instead of tell people, we can't just say like you can't eat McDonald's, like we have to provide like better alternatives. So I think like through these gardens, through these farms, like just showing what's possible, and it's really shifting the way that we live and showing that it is something that's enticing, that's attractive, that feels good.
And I think that my own personal life, like, I had to live my values, that's what I call it, live my values. I had all these beliefs, and I lived some of them, but I moved from Chicago, was a young professional teaching at a university and running nonprofits. I was like, I want to grow food and ride a bike. And I moved to Atlanta to do that, and I know that my pure existence has inspired people to take on their own values, which are very similar to mine. So I become a reflection of what is possible, and other people take that on, and that, it goes back to just knowing your neighbor. That is actually one of the most immediate and powerful things that we all can do. We all can do that, and it isn't preaching to somebody and telling them, but rather just living and being that example for somebody. We have a garden, we live together, and we have 4 beds at our house, and there's a little boy, little Juicy. We go to school with my boys, and he'll come over and he'll ask about a particular food. What is this? Never tasted it. He keeps coming back because it tastes good to him. And maybe his family won't buy it, but what he will remember is the first time he had a cucumber through us.
Right, wow.
But that will force
And that's
experience. That will force experience, because I know a lot of parents, I don't have children, but a lot of parents made their purchases based on what their children like. So the children's like, I don't want this, and you're like, no, you're gonna eat this shit. And they're like, no, I don't want this.
And I think that speaks to a line of questioning about ourselves and our community that we don't do. Where, you know, if you go to traditional public schools, you're taught all these things, you know, formulas and odd facts, you know, and all these things. But we, in that setting, you know, like in my experience coming up in public schools here in the South, like you're not taught to question yourself and really say, what are my values and how do I live them every single day? You know, maybe that's shown in a 5K that I run once a year, you know, but like what am I doing to live out those every day, and how am I doing that in my community, and you know, how are all our values being lived out?
Be here and have this conversation. So let's keep it real that we have privilege. But like looking at our immediate families.
I'm gonna interrupt.
Go ahead.
Okay, so the knives are like all over the place. So whoever has chicken, whoever doesn't have chicken, pass someone the knife. The person that needs. So looking to your families, your friends, the people you spend time with, and being responsible for those immediate people in your lives rather than projecting what we think is best on people that you may not ever encounter because you worked yourself out of that tax bracket. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's real. That education has been my privilege to move me out of certain tax brackets at different points in my life that make my privilege make me inaccessible to other people. But who I can affect is formally educated Black women. That is my dream.
No, I agree with that. My name is Kanata Nicholson. I run a company called Hip Hop Gets Back. We do a lot of mentoring, things like that around the city, different schools. I go to different colleges, talk about the positive side of the hip hop culture. Tell you about that later. But get back to your point, what you were saying was, I think I'm more of what can we do right now? Like a lot of stuff we're talking about, changing policy, changing the systems. It's all great and it's all necessary, but the education has to come from us. You know what I mean? Now I'm still learning myself, but if I see somebody going to McDonald's that I know, I'm like, yo, what are you doing? That's not food. I mean, the education, it really has to come down to the individual person. Right. So I think that'll make it grow from the community to the schools and then see it in more public places, but it's got to start with us. Just a little bit, you know, feed them a little. You know, little tidbits of what you should be doing, what you can be doing. Instead of eating that burger, you could be eating, you know, this salad that'll feel you the same. Or this soy-based protein food that'll, you know, just different tidbits like that, I think will help people get them start thinking in the right mindset. Like, okay, this is where you need to start going if you actually care about your life.
Absolutely.
McDonald's numbers are down for the first time ever in history.
Yep.
So something is happening. There is a shift occurring. I just needed to point that out, that it's happening. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm a huge champion. Like, well, we talked about this. That's my drum of like, what can you do in your own space? And instead of thinking, oh, this is too big, I can't tackle this problem, and you doing your own thing. And like, just an example of that, my grandfather was diagnosed with diabetes a couple of years ago. And at the time I wasn't working. And I moved back to South Carolina for a couple months to help my grandmother learn how to cook the food she normally cooks, but healthier. And she started cooking them, and she gets a little thrown off of it. But I at least got her onto uncured turkey bacon. Like, we can do that. But like, so I'm giving her all of these new foods. I'm showing her how to actually cook them, and I'm doing them myself at home. And that's how my grandma and I bond. She'll call me at 8 o'clock in the morning to talk about a recipe on Rachel Ray. And so she takes those recipes, those new things that we learn how to cook together, and when she's cooking for the church potluck, she makes them for the church potluck, and she shares those recipes. And then they're asking me, "Can you bring some of that quinoa stuff when you come home?"
Food culture is thriving. However, families live in food deserts. There's not a lot of access. There's food insecurity. We all know what those words mean now. Think about some solutions. Have further conversation, and then we'll bring everybody back and just kind of popcorn style and see what people came up with, right? And it's a really unique opportunity because we don't sit in the same rooms with each other. And a lot of times these conversations are happening amongst the same people over and over again. So this is a really unique opportunity to share what you might think would work and just have more dialogue with each other. So we encourage that, and then we'll call you on back. Anything you want to say?
For more information on how you can join the civic conversation, contact the Atlanta Regional Commission at www.civicconvo.com.